Hey there, it's BoardGameDave. Today we're doing one last retrospective from last year. It's my top 10 favorite solo games of 2022. Last year I logged over 100 solo plays of 37 different games, some of which had an official solo mode and some of which I found solo variants for online, but you can find a list of all of those in the description down below. Today though, we're just looking at my top 10 favorites, except I have two really quick honorable mentions. The first being Wonders Duel. This is one of my favorite small box game. It's an exemplary, exceptional two-player only game in its own right. But recently, Asmodee published a free print and play solo mode, which is absolutely fantastic. It's got great art. It's like 12 cards you have to print out and sleeve if you want to, and you can play Wonders Duel solo, and the AI opponents are extremely challenging. The game is so tight, it's so tense. I really love playing Wonders Duel, and I get my butt kicked almost every single time, so I highly encourage you to check out the solo mode for this if you have Wonders Duel. My second honorable mention is a really tiny box game called Dandelions, which I just got after playing it for the first time at PAX. I created my own solo mode for this game, and it's quickly, truly becoming my go-to really quick solo game. Like under 10 minutes, you can play a really quick game. There's almost no setup, there's no downtime. It's really fantastic, and I'll post a solo playthrough of that game next week. So Dandelions, there is a way you can play it solo if you want to give it a try. But let's get down to the main event, my top 10 favorite solo games of 2022, starting with another fairly small box. This is the Red Cathedral from Devere Games, and I really appreciate how much game they packed into this very small package. Let's check out some pictures here on Board Game Geek. It's ranked 140 already. It's only been out for a few years. That is very impressive. So in this game, you are helping to build this grand cathedral, and I'll go ahead and tell you that the end game scoring has a lot of, oh my goodness, a lot of area majority going on here as you work on this cathedral, which looks a lot better on the other side. As you complete them, you'll flip these cards over to their finished sides. It's very lovely. Here's a better picture. There we go. And you'll kind of mark how much you helped build that specific tower with these flags and also decorations that you'll add to each segment. But essentially, on your turn, you're going to pick a die from the rondel here, and you're going to move it that many spaces. So if it's a red 5, for example, you'll move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces, and you'll get one of these purple crystals. Now, you get however many resources as there are dice on that spot. So if you look here, if I move this green die 1 space here to the red, I get 2 of those green crystals, right? Also, moving this yellow die to here will get me 2 gold. You get the idea, right? But there's a couple other cool things you can do, right? When you land in a certain quadrant, right? You see how there's seasons for each quadrant. You can also activate the apprentice that's there, sometimes as many times as you want, sometimes one time, but they give you this really cool special ability, and those will change from game to game, so you've got some more replayability there. And also, the third thing you can do on your turn is activate your own player board, which I'll show you right here. So you'll notice that each die color has its own little slot, and throughout the course of the game, you can get these little tokens like this that you'll put into those slots. So when you move a green die, for example, or a blue die, you get the corresponding little bonus on your token. So there's a lot to do. There's your decorations. You can pay crystals or gems to add to your buildings. It's all very lovely. It's a simple game to teach. It's really not too complex. The weight is 2.79, so fairly easy to teach. Plays really quickly, but it's a big game in a small package. It's Red Cathedral, and the solo mode, although it does have some flaws, let me see if I can find the solo deck. Essentially what you're doing is you're playing against this solo AI that has 5 cards, I think, and each one represents one action it's going to do. So I'd say the biggest flaw of the solo mechanism is that depending on the order they come out, the AI can be a super efficient building engine, or it can kind of just flub along because the sequence that it's taking its actions is not optimal. So, you know, there's a way to kind of house rule that, mitigate that, but beyond that, the solo mode is really satisfying and it's a great solo experience. Number 9 is a game that I'm sure must have seemed a little bit out of character for a quintessential Euro gamer like myself, but it's Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion. Now, I had the opportunity to get this game for just $19 new, and I thought, you know what? It's such a highly rated game. It's ranked number 7 on BGG, and people really love this game. And, you know, I've been kind of getting into more like adventure RPG style games, kind of, so why not take a risk? I'll just play it solo, and if I don't like it, I'll sell it. So I've been getting into it. I'm 4 scenarios into the campaign, and I'm enjoying myself fervently, and I really do like my experience. I will say, Let's look at some pictures as we talk here. I will say that there's a lot to keep track of. The headspace, the overhead is quite a lot. There's a lot to keep track of as far as like how elite enemies work. And one thing you have to remember is that every time you defeat an enemy, they drop a coin, which sometimes I forget. And if you're doing a ranged attack, but the enemy's adjacent, you have to take a disadvantage buff, I guess is the word. What else? When you open a door to a new room, that's really interesting, but also a lot to keep track of because new enemies spawn, and then you resume your turn after the door open, and then there's like initiative order, and what's the other thing? It's hard to remember. I forget what, I know what it is. The enemies, right? As the NPCs or the enemies spawn, they obviously have their own turns where they come toward you and they pick somebody to target and attack. Oh, I love this. That's some ambiance right there. I kind of do the same thing when I play. But it's kind of ambiguous. And as I was ranking my solo games, I realized that ambiguity in a solo mode is something I really don't like. And even in the rulebook, as much as they try to be very clear and cover all the edge cases for AI, enemy movement, and targeting, it does say, don't stress too much about it, just try to have fun and do what you think it would do. And I've already come across scenarios or situations where I can't figure out what the rules want me to do with this AI opponent. I don't know if I like that. So I'm intrigued. I'm very curious about what the future scenarios have to offer, which is why I think it ended up in 9th, because I just want to see what this game has to offer. So Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, I will report back with more thoughts as I play more scenarios. Number 8 is a game in a similar vein as Jaws of the Lion. It's Destinies. And if I had to pick one over the other, honestly, I think I would say Destinies at the current moment. So one thing Destinies has going for it is that it's app integrated. Now, it's not all on the app because I know a lot of people don't like that, but honestly, I have no problem with an app that handles some of the ambiance, first of all, but also, keeping track of items and quests and what the opponents are doing, where they spawn and what they're going to do. I find, again, going back to Jaws of the Lion, that sometimes for the human player to also take on the role of moving the enemies and where they go and who they attack and what their power is and rolling for this and keeping track of all their attacks and stuff, this is so much more streamlined. It is really straightforward. Anybody can play this game, and the teach is a breeze. Let's look at this really quick. So the weight is 1.9, super basic. That's a cat toy you're hearing there in the background. Sorry about that. It is only 1 to 3 players, which can be a bit of an issue if you play with a gaming group of 4 primarily, but you can play it solo. And yeah, well, let's talk about what this game is. First of all, you are this character and you have 2 potential destinies. Okay, there's there's 2 different thematic ways you can win the game, right? And you have these QR codes, and the items have QR codes too. And sometimes the app will ask you, do you want to either roll your strength combat value, or do you want to try using an item? So you can scan an item or roll to see if you complete a task or a test or to defeat an enemy. It's really fascinating. You've got this map right here that you'll flip tiles over as you explore new spaces and interact with these different points of interest and things. You can find blacksmiths and traders that'll show you their goods, and you can buy new items and sell items, and you're trying to collect certain things and defeat these certain enemies. And in a multiplayer game, you're just racing other opponents to see who can complete their objective first. In a solo game, you're basically racing against the clock. But I love it. I think it's so straightforward. On your turn, you move up to 2 spaces and you get to interact with one thing. And that's it. That's all you need to know. And somebody who's never played a board game could sit down and understand that. And the app just takes your hand and walks you through what you need to know. It's really fantastic. And yeah, I really like Destinies. Jaws of the Lion, I didn't really talk about that game too much, but you're doing very similar things where you're exploring, defeating enemies. It's very much a dungeon crawler. You're getting XP and getting coins and buying new items and upgrading yourself. But Destinies kind of does that too, not as much in a scenario fashion. It's more of kind of a one-off system where you play one game and then the next game is pretty, you don't have the same character. It's apparently the overarching narrative is the same, but they're basically totally separate games. Anyway, I'm rambling a little bit, but if you don't know too much about Destinies, because this definitely is living in the shadows of Jaws of the Lion, I say give it a look. It's really fun to get to roll dice, which you don't get to do in Jaws of the Lion. So if you want to roll dice and play a game that's not too much of a headache and is really, really straightforward and easy to jump into, check out Destinies. Number 7 was Raiders of the North Sea. This is a game that's been in my collection for many, many years, and it was one of the first board games I got into and one of the first board games I started playing solo. So I was playing it a lot with other people, and then I heard about the solo mode. I reached out to Garfield Games and actually talked specifically to Shem Phillips, who was kind enough to send me this solo variant from New Zealand. I mean, I paid for it and all, but still, I thought it was really cool that I was talking to the designer himself, who hooked me up with this deck that I think is really hard to find these days. You can get an app, which substitutes this deck, but worth looking into if you enjoy Raiders of the North Sea. So in this game, I love the theme. You are, of course, a Viking, and you're recruiting other Vikings to your ship, and you're going out on raids, and you're attacking outposts and monasteries, and eventually, hopefully, you're going to go raid these fortresses up here and get lots of points for heroic acts of valor, and the stronger your crew is, the better you'll do. But this game is driven by one of the most clever mechanisms on the planet. I can't believe it took so long for someone to come up with this, but basically, on your turn, you're going to place a worker in a location like the mill and get a provision, and then you're going to pull off another worker, right? A shared worker. So you might pull off from the gatekeep or the gatehouse and draw 2 cards. It's fantastic. I love that. And the AI, all it does on its turn is it blocks one location, and if it has enough strength and provisions, it's going to go raiding and basically race you to these spots like the monasteries and the outposts, like I said. And at the end of the game, you're going to score for the solo opponent and for yourself. It's got various difficulty levels, I think 3, which is really great, and it's super easy. Basic upkeep, it keeps up with you really, really well, and it's great. Awesome solo experience. Definitely check this out. But I think that they do solo modes for pretty much all their games now. So, you know, I'm sure they use the same similar mechanisms for, actually, I know they do for Viscounts and Architects and stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, Garfield Games, they make great solo modes, but I really, really liked Raiders of the North Sea. Number 6 is Concordia, specifically Concordia Solitaria. Now, Concordia was one of those games that I had for a really long time. Loved the game, but never really got it to the table. This changed all of that. I played Concordia Solitaria 12 times since I got it, and I just love playing the game solo. So, Concordia, if you don't know, is a classic 2013 game where you are really basically just doing economic stuff out here in ancient Rome. So you're going to put out, colonists, and you're going to put down trading posts, and you're going to produce things like wine and tools and food and bricks and stuff, and that'll help you put out more outposts, and you're going to get cards along the way, cards that are endgame scoring, but also cards that give you action. So the whole game is a hand management game where, again, each card lets you play an action. So the way Solitaria works, which I think is absolutely brilliant, all you've got in here are 4 dice and a deck of cards, which replace the cards in the base game. And let me show you the cards. This is so exciting. I think it's so brilliant. On your turn, you play a card like usual, except every card that you play tells you what the AI opponent's going to do. So you're totally in control, here we go, of what the AI does, right? So I can do the architect, move my colonists and start building, but then I know that the AI is going to take one of the cards from the market. That's not good, right? I can buy cards from the market, but then the AI is going to build a house on a certain type of resource. It's so brilliant. I love that. There's no randomness, well, besides the dice, but you are totally in control of what the AI does. And you have to think about, do I want to let the AI do this? Like, I have this really great card, but then it gives the AI 3 points. Oh my gosh, I love it. And it's got this sort of like pseudo campaign thing where you start with a lower and lower and lower starting score and you try to beat the AI. I love it. This is just a genius design from Matt Gertz, and I love playing it solo. Number 5 was Brass Birmingham. This is one of my all-time favorite games, and Multoma actually made this really incredible solo mode. I will say that it is a beast. I mean, it is super intimidating. It is a daunting solo mode to learn, and I put it off and put it off and put it off, and finally I went for it. I made a solo playthrough on this channel, and it worked really, really well, although my solo playthrough, I kind of botched some of the rules because, again, there is so much to keep track of. It's kind of intense, but the Matoma deck and the app that you can use instead really works well, and it kind of really effectively simulates a human player. It's going to put down trading routes and use your coal and iron and, affect the market, and it's really, really fantastic. It plays just like you would want it to play with another player. So huge props to Multoma. This was a really ambitious game to try to make a solo variant for, and they did a really good job. So if you are ready to learn a very satisfying and fun but intimidating and complex solo mode, check it out. If you love Brass like I do, it's such a brilliant game. You already know that I love Brass Birmingham. You can watch me do a whole review right there if you like, but it's just a brilliant, heavy economic simulation game. Definitely check it out. It's by, of course, Martin Wallace. I forgot for a second. I'm so sorry. But yes, Martin Wallace, genius game designer. Number 4 is Endless Winter Paleoamericans, easily my most anticipated game of 2022. So this is an extraordinary game, one of my absolute favorite games. It's a game that I always say feels like it was designed with me in mind, thematically, mechanically. It is just an absolutely amazing game, and the art and the components and everything. That being said, I think it shines with more players. The solo mode, although it is really, really good, I don't find as compelling as some of the other games on my list. For just 2 reasons. One, it doesn't quite simulate a human player. It doesn't feel like it responds to what you're doing too much. There's a solo deck that you kind of flip through and it takes certain actions along the way. And the other thing is I did find that it was a little bit too easy. Now, please take that into context. I helped playtest Endless Winter, and I've played it many, many, many times, way before I ever got my physical copy. So for me to say that the solo mode is easy, you know, I played it a ton of times. I know the game in and out, so that might not be your experience. And Fantasia actually did publish an official, much harder solo mode. It's out there somewhere. I haven't tried it yet, so they did listen to the feedback, and there's a harder solo mode you can try out. But Endless Winter, if you don't know, is a worker placement game that also has deck building, that also has area control, it also has set collection, it's got idle tracks and endgame scoring, and it also adds tons of expansions like cave paintings and ancestors and different animals and oh gosh, what is there? There's a rivers and rafts that changes, oh there it is, that changes the terrain map entirely, and you can row your canoe down the river and have influence there, and there's monuments you can get, and it is just extraordinary. We didn't even talk about these megaliths, this 3D building thing where you can put tiles on the board to get bonuses and also put tiles on top of other people's tiles to score points. It's extraordinary. Again, Endless Winter, you know I love this game. I've talked about it so much on this channel. I have videos all over the place about Endless Winter, but solo game, it's my number 4. It's a super solid solo game, definitely worth checking out. It's really good. Number 3 is Rococo Deluxe Edition. I don't own this game. My friend Gary was kind enough to let me borrow it and play it solo and do a solo playthrough on the channel, but I love Rococo. It's the art and the components for me. It just elevates this game to a whole new level. Let's take a look at this game. Oh my gosh. So Rococo is not a terribly complex game. It's 1 to 2 hours. Weight 3 out of 5. Oh, it plays to 5? I'm not sure I knew that. That's incredible. But look at this art by Ian O'Toole. The box is huge and the board is gigantic, but it's just absolutely gorgeous. In the game, you are a tailoring company, and you're making these beautiful frocks and dresses for the ball of Louis XV, I think. And yeah, you're gonna make these dresses and you're gonna lend them out to people who will wear it to the ball, and they'll talk highly about your beautiful dresses and say, where did you get this wonderful dress? And yeah, things like that, but in French. And also you're gonna be sponsoring fireworks and musicians that play in these halls. And there's this lovely, amazing, tense area control thing where each of these rooms in the palace or wherever scores its own points based on whoever has the most influence in that room. And you get influence, of course, by having people wearing your dresses in the room, but also sponsoring musicians, like I said. It's just extraordinary. The whole gameplay mechanism is a hand selection or action selection thing. You've got a hand of cards, you play a card, you do what's on the card, you do one other action based on the type of card it is, and it's just extraordinary. I love it. There's a sliding market of resources, and the different blueprints for the different dresses and things, of course, slide down and get cheaper and cheaper. There's an income phase, which I love in games. There's metal coins you can get, which we did. I could go on and on. Rococo, the game itself is absolutely top notch, but also, again, the art and the components, it just elevates this game beyond playing a board game. It feels like it's just so immersive. I feel like I'm really making these dresses, and I love it. I'm itching to play Rococo. I've been talking about it a lot this month. and I just want to play it again. I didn't even talk about the solo mode though. So in the solo mode, you're going up against Madame du Barry, who has her own deck of cards that she flips. And I think as you go through the certain rounds of the game, she gets stronger and stronger, if I remember right. But she is also making dresses and also putting them out in the ballrooms and also getting income and also sponsoring musicians and doing fireworks and things. And she is a very worthy opponent. So you can watch me play against Madame du Barry right there. It was a wonderful time. I love playing Rococo solo. That's why it's obviously number 3 on my list. Number 2 was Great Western Trail 2nd edition, which took a serious beating on the way to Vegas in my luggage. Holy smokes. Oh my gosh. But this is an amazing game in its own right, but also the solo mode is absolutely chef's kiss, amazing design. So in Great Western Trail, you are herding cows from somewhere to Kansas City to sell them at the market. And along the way, you're going to be building buildings and hiring more cowboys, and you're going to be working with engineers to move your train further along the track so you can ship your cows to further, more profitable markets up here at the top. That's where the trains are. And the solo mode is absolutely brilliant. You're playing against Sam, who's a really challenging opponent, and Sam is going to do things just like a human player would. It's going to put buildings out there to try to screw with you. It's going to take the cows that you really wanted. It's going to hire the cheapest employees from the employee market, and it really feels very punishing because, again, they did a really great job of making a solo opponent that simulates a human player, and I love that so much. I love that so much in solo games. Yeah, it's fantastic. Oh, and I really like, by the way, how Sam always starts with a specialty. It's going to specialize in cowboys or engineers or builders, and it's going to kind of really harness that specialty. It's going to really channel or focus on that one ability that it has. So each time you play, you might be playing with a Sam that really goes ham on buildings, or a Sam who really focuses on getting cowboys and snatching up those high value cows. So it feels different every time, and I really enjoy playing Great Western Trail solo. An amazing game and an amazing solo mode. And finally, my favorite solo game I played in 2022 was another Alexander Pfister game. Do you know what it might be? I've talked about it before. It's Maracaibo. I absolutely find myself continuously, endlessly thrilled and charmed by this game. I just keep coming back to it. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It works so great multiplayer, and it plays really well solo. You play against a solo opponent named Jean or John, who has its own solo deck, and as you flip it, it's going to fly around the Caribbean, completing the quest you were trying to get, traveling all the way across the mainland, doing lots of combat and getting influence with the English and the French and the Spanish, and doing all the things that you were trying to do. It does it faster and better, and I find that the solo mode is quite challenging, which I love in a solo game. So if you don't know about Maracaibo, lend me your ear for a minute or two and let me tell you all about this wonderful game. Not all about, a little bit about this game. So in this game, there's some similarities to Great Western Trail in that you are traveling around this rondel sort of map, and you're going to be completing all kinds of different objectives. So you'll stop at cities to upgrade your ship and take various actions. You're going to stop at quests to deliver some goods and get a quest which gives you points, but also gives you all kinds of special goods. You're going to be exploring the mainland down here and sending your adventurer out to gain influence in different nations and, again, upgrade your ship and get coins and points and complete quests along the way. And you're going to be doing combat. You're going to be fighting alongside the French and the Spanish and the English and gaining influence cubes, putting them out on the board, increasing your reputation with each of those factions, and whichever faction, whichever country, whichever nation has the most control in the Caribbean at the end of the game, you multiply your influence with that nation's power level, strength level in the Caribbean, basically. Kind of a problematic theme, by the way, which was addressed with this expansion, which is right over there, called, what's it called? The Uprising, I believe, which somehow I still haven't opened because I just love playing the base game of Maracaibo. So I'll get to that very, very soon, but Maracaibo is just one of my favorite games. Last time I rated or ranked all my games, it was my second favorite game of all time. So I love Maracaibo, my favorite solo game that I played last year. Number 1 on that list, if you were curious, was A Feast for Odin, which I'll still contend is one of my absolute favorite solo games, but I actually didn't play it last year, at least not the physical version. I did do a solo playthrough live on this channel on Board Game Arena. You can check that out right there, but I didn't play it, again, the physical version, so I didn't count it on my list, although it would have scored very highly because I love the solo mode for A Feast for Odin. That being said, those were my top 10 solo games that I played last year in 2022. Again, the whole list is down there in the description if you want to check that out. And please let me know in the comments what your favorite solo games of last year were. Did you have any new surprising favorites? Did you have any tried and true go-to solo games? Please let me know in the comments. You know that I respond to every comment, so let me know what you've been playing solo. It is so much fun to sit down and play a game by yourself when there's a great solo mode. I just love it. It's such a satisfying and zen and meditative experience, and I really think that there is a real place for solo gaming in a gamer's life. It gives me a sense of just calm and purpose, and I feel so, there's no problems. I'm in a very peaceful state when I play solo games. So I'm all about it. Keep doing your thing if you play solo games. I think it's great. So anyways, that's it for today. I hope you enjoy my list. And again, please let me know what your favorite solo games are. And in the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care and happy gaming. Bye. Harry, do you want to say bye? Here, come on up. He's been snuggling with me. Here you go. Harry, you want to say bye to everybody? Do you have eye boogers? That's kind of embarrassing. Oh no, Harry. Yeah, well, you kind of sleepy, bud? Were you sleeping? Did I wake you up? Oh, that was very unkind of me. I startled you. I'm so sorry. I'll let you go back to sleep, okay? Goodbye.